Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Joe Theodore, and it's an honor to be here with you today. So, guys, it's Sunday, but this is not a weekly forecast. Now, I know last week I made a whole spiel about how I want to focus maybe more on the weeklies so I can have more time maybe during the week to make videos on educational topics or other insightful astrological videos. But I'm not going to lie, something overcame me recently, and I think it's because my schedule is getting a little busier. With some astrology stuff, but just with other things. And the truth is I'm someone who, cares very much about his time. And I'm also someone who's very aware of what makes him anxious. And I can tell you one thing that makes me anxious. It is knowing that I have to do something almost like there's a pressure to it. I have nothing wrong with doing things that are expected of me, right? That are responsibility. But when it comes to something like, a YouTube channel, which of course is part of my business now, it's part of my life and stuff like that. But deciding how I want to change things and manipulate things here is pretty much free will. I'm not really bound and chained to anything. And the truth is there's an anxiety I get when I know, oh my God, I haven't recorded the weekly yet. When in reality, I just want to sit here and make a video on something I'm very inspired to talk about, whether that is involving just a random astrological topic, I just made that historic Mars retrograde video that's looking ahead, about a year from now, but coming soon in November, December. But a video like that really inspired me. And maybe you felt the passion in that video if you watched it. There's a passion there. Now, I'm passionate about astrology, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about being a weekly astrological weatherman that's just not me. Same with the YouTubers and astrologers that do every video is all signs. They go through the zodiac for everybody's all signs, doing, horoscopes. They know exactly who, they're dealing with. I can't get on board with that either. I've tried. Even the last full moon we had, the Capricorn, I tried recording a full moon in Capricorn video doing all signs to try to give you guys maybe a video where I can highlight what the full moon might be doing in your chart. But to me, it felt so inauthentic when I did it. Because yes, I'm intuitive and whatever, but it's still not the same as sitting with you, knowing exactly what's going on in your life and, talking to you about what's up with Capricorn in your birth chart, right? So for me, there's a part of the YouTube horoscope world, which is very modern and very new agey, which I'm not anti-new age, but there's just something, you know what it is? I think I'm just too authentic, and I hate saying it like that. That makes me sound so egotistical, I know. But maybe it's because I'm a Scorpio rising and I just don't again, everyone's doing it. It seems like it's the cream of the crop on YouTube. And for some reason, I'm nope, don't want to be a part of that. But again, the weeklies are a whole different game because I'm not really predicting anything specific for you. I'm just sort of giving you a taste of the weather. But I'm sorry to say, though, I'm probably not going to do them on Sundays like that anymore. But what I'm going to do is I'm always going to post a video on Sunday. And there is something I do want to talk about in regards to the week. It's one of the major aspects of the week. And maybe that's what you can expect from me on Sunday. Maybe my Sunday video will be more of hey, here's an aspect coming up in the week that I like. And let's talk about it a little bit. And of course, if anything major is going on in the sky, I will make a whole video on it. But the truth is this coming week isn't that exciting anyway. It's kind of just a continuation of what we talked about last week. It's the integration phase of this full moon. We have Mars still making sextiles to Cancer. We'll have Saturn kind of anchoring in with a trine to Cancer. So whatever was going on in your Gemini story into Cancer, because every personal planet shifted into Cancer now. Saturn now, instead of making those squares to Gemini, will now be making trines to Cancer, to all those same planets. So Saturn will be anchoring and providing stability to whatever might have been way too chaotic or happening way too quick, in Gemini. Like if you were meeting a bunch of people, or maybe you started dating someone, then the Saturn trine to Cancer now will be like providing stability to your consciousness, your mind, your choices, your heart. And then Mars will be providing sextiles, which I just said before, will still be providing sextiles from Taurus to Cancer. So Mars is going to provide this masculine assertiveness and confidence and oomph to kind of just continue forward, to be fearless, to take charge. And Mars's involvement with Venus is just showing, there's a lot of real, authentic yin and yang going on, whatever that means, right? Harmonious compatibility between the masculine and the feminine. That could be relating to people, or that could be relating to something that you're studying, so, I know there's some people right now recently in my life that, have been heavily into certain studies, and they feel very inspired and they feel in flow with their studies. I myself have taken a very, very deep interest in certain philosophical studying myself, because I'm in constant learning. And something that has nothing to do with astrology either. Just being super curious about some philosophical concept, in more of an academic sense. And for me, Mars has been providing me with incredible just focus and interest. And Cancer is my 9th house. So Cancer, with all these planets, is really happening in my house of higher learning. So how perfect is that? So yeah, guys, this week's really a continuation of last week, to be quite honest. The one thing, though, I do want to talk about is Chiron squaring Mercury on Friday. And the reason why I want to discuss this as the aspect of the week is because Chiron in Aries is a transit that we've been dealing with for years, and it will be with us for another 2 to 3 years. And in this point in our life, there's a karmic wound needing to be dealt with. On a collective level, the karmic wound is identity. On our individual level, whatever house topic Aries is, we're dealing with how you are represented as a self in that part of your life. And that part of your life is probably very self-oriented. And I'm not saying that in a selfish way. I'm saying your identity probably plays a big role in some way, shape, or form in that part of your birth chart, that theme of your life. And the fact that Chiron is there is a wound involving your identity in that part of your life. And that was what the solar eclipse was about. That is what the Mercury retrograde story was about, the last one, because it literally hit Chiron 3 different times. I mean, how many of you have been with me since the beginning of the channel, about 2 months ago when I started it? I started it literally, I think, a couple of days after the solar eclipse. And I talked about it for a long time because the activations were long lasting. And again, those activations are still long lasting, and they will be for years probably. But the thing is now that any aspect that Chiron makes to a planet that was involved in the solar eclipse story, the Mercury retrograde story, is a trigger and a reactivation in some way, shape, or form from the solar eclipse moment. Now, Chiron will be squaring Mercury, the planet that was retrograde, who hit it 3 times. Mercury passed through Chiron 3 different times, right during that eclipse. So something that might be a little uncomfortable will be reactivating. And this is something that we must look out for. This is something we must, not obsess over, of course, but because Mercury now is in Cancer with the Sun and with Venus, I think the message will be, what do you need to do to give yourself comfort, nurturing, and care to whatever the Chiron trigger will come again? Something will resurface in the Aries part of your life involving the Chiron story. And your job and task is to provide that wound with some nurturing. Now, of course, that sounds very cliche because, nurturing and self-care is important, right? But we deal with challenges all the time. And the Chiron story will always be challenging for us in Aries until it moves on to Taurus in like 2028, right? 2027, 2028. But the thing is if we don't deal with the Chiron wound, it'll just still be a wound, and that never really got dealt with. And karmically, this is our moment to heal the Chiron wound when it's transiting in the sky. So, yeah, the square will be uncomfortable to Mercury. Yes, Chiron will be squaring Venus shortly after. Yes, Chiron will be squaring the Sun towards the end of Cancer season when the Sun gets to 23 degrees, all that, because that's where Chiron is, 23 degrees Aries. So these activations aren't new. Every year, we have these same cycles because Chiron has been in Aries this long. So these same squares to Cancer happen, whenever the Sun is there, whatever other planets are, in Cancer. But this is very significant because Mercury's there, and we literally are still dealing with the solar eclipse energies, believe it or not. And this is going to reactivate something. This is going to reactivate, probably try to remember what the Mercury retrograde taught you and that was bringing up for you. That is probably what this is all about. If you really want to get like super mystical and if you want to know the power of the divination science of astrology, the planet that was retrograde during all of this, what was the lesson? What was it teaching you? What were you being held back from? What was the retrograde teaching you? What was it bringing up? What happened? Because that is going to be the specific trigger on Friday. But the good thing is, Mercury's in Cancer, and it has its best bud, Venus, and the Sun. And Mars is providing a sextile to Venus and to Mercury, to all of Cancer. Mars is influencing Cancer in a sextile. So Mars is there and is supportive and is, it's going to help you like a bodyguard. Whatever challenge or trigger comes up, Mars will be there giving you, in the most positive of ways, a way to deal with it, right? But it's something I really wanted to mention today because all of you guys know me. I love Chiron. You have to love Chiron because if you don't, it'll just keep you down and out your whole life. It is our sacred wound. And something very sacred happened to us during that solar eclipse. Something very pivotal in our life journey. Whether we knew it consciously or not, but something was felt. And maybe people are still in a state of confusion because of it. Because usually when something is triggering your identity or something involving a major theme of what you would call your identity, like you can have Aries in the 4th house and like it just means that like, having some kind of self-establishment, and having some kind of authority in your own home space is important, right? But Aries in every house is a little bit different and unique because Aries in the 4th house can also mean you could have grown up with anger, problems in the family, right? But it also means like, hey, like you need independence in your home situations, and independence is really like how we would most define ourselves. How are we independently here on Earth? How do you independently show up in whatever part of your life Aries is. And Chiron has been showing wounds in that part of your life, involving the self, right? The individual, the independence. So whatever Mercury, whatever that retrograde story was for you in April, reflect on that. Be prepared for something to resurface, to be triggered. Don't obsess over it because that's not healthy. But just allow it to come. And it's going to be something that has to do with the mind, the intellect. It's going to have something to do with thoughts, right? Something to do with speech, you know? This can be talking, writing. I think for a lot of us, it's what we tell ourselves. That could have been the wound with that Mercury story. It's like the conversations that we have with ourselves, the belief systems we hold, which all get channeled through the mind. And Mercury has done a lot since that eclipse. So we should have learned a lot of lessons, from other things that have happened, from Taurus to, Gemini and Jupiter, bringing that profound expansion to us, whether there was challenges in that in your life or not, is a whole other conversation, I guess. And I wouldn't know that unless I talked to you. But, Mercury has been doing a lot in our life since the eclipse, but something will resurface. Maybe you're going to have doubts somewhere. Like, I kind of already have a feeling where this is playing out in my life. And for me, it's kind of like second guessing myself in something. Questioning if I'm doing something correctly or not. Like thinking I had something figured out. Like I knew I had like an identity shift, like something really shifted for me on an individual personal level during the solar eclipse. And now I can almost sense, especially after this post-new full moon stuff, something is making me question something in regarding to that story from the eclipse. And because I'm clairvoyant enough to see this, of course, I don't know the details of exactly what profound, maybe something wild is going to happen on Friday when this transit occurs, but I'll be prepared for when the details arise and what they are, but to always rest assured, like, hey, Mercury's in Cancer right now. Mercury, the Cancer season wants us to, take care of ourselves. It's very hot out in the Northern Hemisphere, the heat, we have to keep ourselves cool in the water. We have to keep ourselves nourished and, so we don't have heat stroke. But Mars, the planet of fire, which also rules Aries, will be providing support in a sextile to this whole Cancer story, but also the story that involves the Chiron Aries eclipse retrograde moments that happened all those months ago. So Mars symbolically is going to be supporting whatever trigger and challenge arises. Okay, so that's how you have to put the puzzle pieces together when you logically try to think about this stuff, because Mars is still activated because the home turf is Aries. But because Mars is now in Taurus, in a very grounded, yet very, still very activated, especially with Uranus around. But Mars is supporting Mercury. Mars is supporting Venus and the Sun, right? By sextile. So that's why I think, all will be well. So for me, it's don't get hung up on whatever gets brought up. Don't get, don't believe your thoughts necessarily. Don't totally make a decision, based upon something that might seem challenging or overwhelming or upsetting or whatever the case may be. Just take breaths, move through it. The planets, Mercury, Venus, and even the Sun will be out of Cancer and into Leo. So really try to hang on until the middle of July. If anything major kind of comes up from that Chiron story, just sort of like try to be as stable as you can with whatever, just kind of keep doing what you're doing. Like you've been moving on, you've been moving forward. Try not to look back so much because maybe, the whole retrograde thing and Mercury now being re-triggered in a square, it may want you to look back to the Mercury stuff that you were dealing with then. So maybe some of the hidden wisdom from Mars is like, hey, move forward, don't look back. Move forward, assertiveness, action, energy, don't look back. So try to imagine Mars telling you that, you know? But yeah, guys, I mean, other than that, the week, I mean, I kind of ran through it a little bit earlier in the video, but I'm going to probably not spend so much time doing weeklies on Sundays. I will post a video on Sunday, and that video will have something to do with the upcoming week, but I'm not going to spend the entire, I'm not going to spend the entire video on going methodically through the week like a weatherman. It's just not who I am, guys. I'm sorry. It's just not who I am. And same with doing the all signs videos. I mean, that's not the kind of astrologer I want to present myself to be. I like to think that I offer deep insights into the way I view astrology. And, there's a million other astrologers if you're interested in horoscope predictions and stuff like that. Now, in my classes, I do for certain videos, for certain classes, like for example, the moon video class, transforming your life with your moon sign, the destiny of your rising sign class, the retrograde classes. There are, at the end of each of those classes, I do go through all of the houses and like share like my intuitive perspective on what would happen in that house if the moon was in the first house, if the moon was in the second house, right? Or with the rising signs, like what zodiac sign in the rise. Like I go through all the zodiac signs and kind of give you, my interpretation of what, that particular zodiac sign or where that moon is would be doing. And with the retrograde planets, at the end of each retrograde class, I do the same thing. I go around the zodiac wheel, houses 1 through 12, and I, fictitiously put the Mars retrograde in the first, the second, the third, and so on, and kind of give you an intuitive understanding of what might happen in your life when that happens, in your life. Like this upcoming Mars retrograde, if you already know where Cancer and Leo is in your chart, then you can kind of go to my Mars retrograde class and purchase it, of course. And then you can look to see when I get to what house topic your Leo and Mars is. If you know your birth chart and you know what houses those are, you can go to my class. At the end of the class, I go through, what house the Mercury, the Mars retrograde would be happening in. So I still do all signs stuff. It'll just be like if I'm doing a class at the end of the class, or if I really have to, share something, if the video really calls for it. But as far as horoscopes and doing stuff on YouTube, that's just not me, guys. And same with the weeklies. But the monthlies, I will always do the monthlies. So yes, my friends, that's all I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you are new. Check out all my links down below. Click around, explore, and I'll see you all very soon.